I'm Jeff Cook.
And I'm TJ Wilson.
And this is Around the Circle.
I'm walking slowly. I'm taking my time. All I could talking is starting to rhyme. I'm letting go of lonely, letting go of strife. I just can't get enough of this beautiful life.
The Enneagram is a map of the human personality. It's a tool for navigating relationships. It creates language for what motivates us and helps us look at the way we look at everything else. Most importantly, the Enneagram's a mirror because sometimes you need help seeing yourself. My name's Jeff Cook. I'm a philosopher in Greeley, Colorado, and with me is TJ Wilson, businessman, lover of theology, and Enneagram ninja.
Hello.
After our first recording, TJ, the thing that went through my head is this would be a fantastic thing to offer somebody who's trying to type themselves.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I think that this kind of material, actually more than anything else, would probably showcase the that's who I am as well as anything else. But I also have good news for you on this front.
Hit me.
Later this summer, we are going to do a special 9-part series just dedicated to typing each of the types.
Ooh, fun.
I'm super excited about this. It's in the works. It will be a long-standing resource for hundreds of thousands of people for years to come.
Generations to come, even.
It will require our present 200-some-odd listeners to get the word out. However, world-changing, baby.
Excellent. I'm excited.
Well, we're going to pick up with the ones.
Cool.
Talk about the emotional life of ones.
So still in that body triad, ones move us right next to the heart triad. So ones are going to be the type of people who act on their feelings. They will have like that emotional center is the secondary processing for them. And they will have a lot of big emotions about the things that they do and the things that they accomplish. And when emotions come through into them, they want to do something about it right away. Like their intuition, their body, their physical presence in the world is the first and foremost way that they take in information and that they absorb and observe the world is through that body center. But the emotional life of ones plays a significant part. But because they are farthest from their head center, they don't necessarily process all of that until way later. Mm-hmm. They have reactions to their emotions, but they don't think about it until later.
Ready, fire, aim.
Yep. and that often means, especially because and like there's this give and take, like this is because of, and it's caused by, and it is a cause of that inner critic who is constantly telling them that everything that they've done is wrong and bad and they could have done better. And like part of it is because they don't think about how they emotionally react to things until later. And it's already telling them that they did it wrong, and then like it becomes a cycle.
Mm-hmm. Started to recognize that I think there's a lot of social pressure as well on that front that I'm starting to be aware of. It's not just my own self-judgments, but perhaps the judgments of others that actually are an engine for action.
Sure.
If I don't do this, then others will see me as.
Yeah. People will judge you. And
yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's for everybody. I'm just aware of that recently. Yeah. In terms of affect, ones are idealists. They're one of the kites alongside 4s and 7s. Frustrated when they don't get what they want, but have these high ideals for themselves and others.
Right.
And this is how they connect with the world. They connect with the world by seeing the world as something that they can improve.
Right.
And that's a comfortable space for them to be.
Right.
When I'm improving the world.
Here's the things that can be fixed. Here's the ways that the world should be operating. And yeah, when it's not, it's a problem.
Oftentimes, this is the place that I see folks tune out most to connection with me, but it's the place that I want to connect most to them. It's we're talking about the thing that's important to them, and I say, oh, have you thought about this as well? And all I'm doing there is I'm offering the next 10% or the next 5%, or here's one more step you could take.
Right.
However somebody interprets that is irrelevant. What's important is that's what I'm offering of myself, because this is how I connect to you. And this is me showing you that I love you, is I'm telling you, here's the next 5%.
Right.
Whether, even if it's rejected, or, you know, I long to have banter there, or imagine what could be in that sphere, those next little steps, as it were. But again, the affect for one's being idealists is, what can I improve? And that's how they're connecting to themselves, to the world, and to others.
Right.
You said that ones are going to reach a tipping point of frustration to value before they get rid of a car. And once the frustration finally hits a spot, one's going to say, the hell with it, and move probably immediately.
Move on very quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Endure, because endurance and long suffering, that's a virtue.
Right.
But there's a point at which...
Yeah, this is the appropriate way to interact with this thing, that because I can fix it. It can be fixed.
Yeah.
Until it can't anymore, and then just get rid of it when I'm out of my life.
I think 1s and 9s both have that, don't they? This may be a side note of like hitting tipping points where the 9's anger kind of blows up in unexpected ways. But this, it's similar with 1s, where it's the 1s are aware of their anger. They're just keeping it as under control as they can consciously. Is that how that would work? And then the frustration.
Well, and also it's inappropriate to let that anger out. And how much of that anger is about, like, you're not necessarily behaving the best, so there are things about you that can be fixed to help fix this. And it may not be that the car is the problem. It may be that you're driving it badly, or like these things need to be fixed. So that the anger, letting that anger out is inappropriate and bad until it comes out on its own.
Yeah. This is maybe unknown, but that self-assessment takes a ton of time at certain points. So like, I'm going to think through, is this really about me? Is this really about me? Is this really about me? And so that takes a little bit of time. All the while I'm getting angry at the thing, and angrier and angrier and angrier until pops.
An emotional reaction. Yeah.
Super healthy way to do life, kids. But that's also how relationships break, is you reach the tipping point of frustration.
Right. And it's also because 1s are secondarily attached, and they have such a drive to, like, situated in between the 9 and the 2, 1s are very interested in being helpful and productive people that are helping others reach their best self. And why don't you want my help on this? That's part of how that frustration comes out, and so, like, because they are the mental processing is tertiary, because they are farthest away from the mind center. They don't necessarily read or engage emotions in productive ways, like they have access to it, but it's like on crutches. Like the way that the 1s engage the emotional space of others is often, it's heartfelt, and it's not necessarily broken, but it's not quite fully functional, because it's action first. It's I understand your feelings, and I want to help you. I want to help make you better.
Yeah. It's perhaps systematic.
Sure.
Here's the system I've bought into, Enneagram, and it'll probably help you get through this difficult time. But if you don't go with the system I'm offering, I probably don't have the natural capacity to meet you where you're at.
Right.
I'm sure there's ones
But
that
I
have
don't think
better
that-
skills there, but
Yeah, I also don't think the one would be able to most ones would be able to communicate that in a way that because I don't think ones would be comfortable saying that because that's the wrong way to react. Like if you are rejecting my system, it's inappropriate for me to just cut off the relationship.
oh, I see. Yeah. Suppose in those situations, I often find myself, I don't know if this would be true of others. I'm again intuiting my feelings and your feelings. I don't know what to do about that because I'm thinking repressed.
Right.
So I will
or even
feel those
necessarily
things.
feeling them, but not necessarily interpreting them correctly. It's a feeling
Yeah.
that
Well, interpretation would be a thinking process.
needs and demands action.
Yeah.
So we're going to do something about this.
Yeah, that's it.
But you might be interpreting a completely wrong sense of whatever emotionality is happening there.
Ready, fire, aim.
Yeah.
A good person would step into this situation with wisdom and clarity. No pressure one. You know, and that's what's going on. And if it's not working, then the one's going to say, "Why aren't I better at this?
Right.
I should
This
be
is
good
obviously
at this."
my fault. Yeah.
And then it's all about them.
Yep.
That also works real well, kids.
That inner critic. It's a bear.
Well, what does investing in the heart of the ones in our lives look like?
I think ones need to know that it's okay. That like when they fail, when they feel like a failure, they need to know that it's okay. And that oftentimes like it's really good for those of us who are around ones to provide that, like, your sense of failure isn't as bad as you think it is. Mm-hmm. And I think you're good. You might have screwed up this situation, but that doesn't make you a bad person. And cultivating relationships with ones, like they need to hear that from people that they're in relationship with. So like me saying it over the podcast to total strangers, there aren't ones that are going to hear me saying that are going to take that into their heart. Mm-hmm. But there are ones in my life that I have close relationships with that need to hear that from me from time to time.
A huge catch-22 for ones is obviously they're doing the most important work in the world. That is the deep desire of their heart, is to do something good in the world. And as such, there's pressure that's built up, and that is compounded daily in terms of how they see the activities they're putting their hands to.
Right.
And this is problematic because you think your work is way more valuable, important, and world-changing than it actually is. And you're taking yourself way too seriously. Right. And you need to loosen up. And that's a very difficult way of processing one's one and only life. Mm-hmm. But you're going to be way healthier when you don't take yourself so seriously. Right. And it's also going to open up an avenue to the thing the one really needs, and that's for them to be nice to themselves. We talked about that with Juanita quite a bit in our last podcast. Right. But one's being compassionate to themselves and practicing self-compassion is a hard habit to develop. Right. But that open-handed posture, grace towards self, these are things that the if we're in relationship to other ones, giving them permission to be looser, giving them permission to be kind to themselves, giving them permission to get out of town. That's the other practice. I'm sure we've said this before, but if you're in a relationship with one, you need to tell them to get their calendar out, block out some days where they go somewhere that they can't possibly improve anything. Right. Right. Stop working for a day. Yeah, but they need to move locations to do it. Right. Because otherwise,
there's always something to be fixed.
Yeah, you're gonna be at home and you're gonna be looking at your yard and it's a quarter centimeter too high. And
right.
What do ones need to tell people in their lives that they need?
I don't know. You tell me.
ones need to be honest about, I'm always going to respond poorly to your compliments. Always. I'm always going to put forward a very even keel, yes, but here's the next thing that we're going to do. And I really need you to tell me that I did a good job on the task that was just completed.
Sure.
And I'm not going to give you anything, and I'm sorry about that.
Yeah.
And that's just but I recall my favorite teacher in high school. I'm sure was a one, and I remember going to her once after I graduated. I had become an academic. Her class had been instrumental in my course. I'd gotten a job at a university. I went to tell her how much her work had meant to me.
Mm-hmm.
And it was discounted, dismissed, and kind of labeled. My compliment was labeled because it was too much for her to emotionally engage in a worthy way. Sure. I think that's how compliments can come across. It's almost like a form of pleasure that we don't trust, you know. Or
well, you're not allowed to experience that pleasure until you've earned it,
and that's kind of it. But even if you have earned it, it's like you're distrustful of those emotional swells.
Right.
You work your whole life for X, you get X, and then because your entire, this is how you connect to the world. I connect to the world by improving things. If I've improved the thing, well, I don't live in that space.
Right.
I'm going to the next space. That was, again, we talked quite a bit with Juanita about that in terms of pausing. The one needs to pause and remind themselves of the great goods that happened a few hours ago.
Right.
And rest in those. Be grateful, live in them, allow them to do their work. Anyway.
Yeah. Well, I think we talk a lot about how particularly 1s, 2s, and 6s are verbal processors. Like they need to share because they don't do a lot of productive thinking, especially in real time. Mm-hmm. They have to sort of think out loud. And I think that 1s also emote out loud. Like this is they react to their emotions. And so in the same way that like we need to sit with 6s when they are talking through all of their things, we also need to sit with 1s when they are emoting their things.
Yeah. Without judgment.
Right. And this is something that I think a lot of 1s need to learn to communicate to the people in their lives, is that I am going to have emotional reactions and I need you to be with me through the whole thing. Because if you respond emotionally to my emotions, then we're just going to be piling on and the productive thinking goes out the window.
Yeah. In those times of creating space for the one to express their emotions, they're going to feel bad about those expressions later on.
Right.
And however you can soften that and tell them that in those spaces, it's entirely fine for them to be aggressively angry or frustrated or
sad or
because they're going to
whatever it is they're feeling.
Yeah. It's not going to come out, quote unquote, correctly in their minds.
Right.
And that's something they're going to dig into themselves for later.
Right.
Creating that space is an investment in the people in my life who create those spaces are a treasure, and that ends up being again investment. 2s. Let's talk about the 2s and their emotional life.
Excellent. We get to the heart triad. This is the group that takes in the world through this emotional center. 2s, 3s, and 4s are all about the way other people think and feel and the way that other people think about them. So 2s, the first in this emotional triad, 2s are very in tune with the emotional life of people around them. 2s are next to the body center, so we flip the coin on 1s, and we have a group of people that are going to have a high radar for the emotional lives of people around them and the needs and connection that they have to other people. And then they're going to start acting on their perception of those connections. So twos are often described as the helper or like caretakers. It's because they know what you need oftentimes before you do, and they want to make sure they are there to help provide that thing that you need. And that's emotional support, that's meals, that's a blanket, that's like whatever ways that you need to be taken care of, they want to help provide that. And that is how they take care of themselves, is by being useful to you and by taking care of you. This is a great insight into how the emotional center is about connection. Is because twos are much more about how to take care of you than they are even about taking care of themselves.
Yep. Like fives and eights, they're part of the relationist triad, and so they're going to expect rejection in their relationships. And in order to overcome that, they're going to offer something of value. And twos, as was said, offer help and support.
Right.
And that's how I connect with the world.
Right.
Oftentimes the types get titles. I think since we interviewed Hunter, we've kind of strayed away from the titles because he had some great wisdom on this, where he just said that the titles can often get in the way and misrepresent what's actually going on. And so just labeling the types by number continues to be the best way.
Right.
But oftentimes the titles that are given to the numbers are about their affect. And
Sure.
this comes across most cleanly in twos, but we'll see it with
Yeah.
threes. They're attaching for success. We'll see it with fours. The individualist is going to be about their ideals. And, fives are observers. Here's the data that I'm providing. Six are the loyalists. Here's, the security that I'm seeking. I'm attaching loyally to those who provide it. And it's just that, I don't know if there's an overlap there, but just as we're talking, that popped for me.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Twos you said are going to get rid of their car when it doesn't help them serve others.
Yeah, I mean, all of the car things, I think were like, it was a lot of jokes that sort of point to something true, and I think this one, like, twos are not interested in the car. They're interested in the ways that it helps them serve other people.
Yeah.
And their attachment to the things in their life will have that big filter for them. It's like how do these things connect me to the people around me?
Yep. Of all things, even when those people haven't been realized yet, we had a friend who listened to that podcast right after she bought a minivan. She didn't have any kids yet. And she bought a minivan, and it's like, I got the tool, and it's ready to go to connect with.
What if somebody
and
asked
help.
me to carry around 5 kids?
And she's ready to go.
Yep.
That describes her house as well.
Sure.
But this also describes how relationships break for twos. It's not just that the partner in their life isn't helping them to help serve others, but perhaps that their partner doesn't need their help anymore, or perhaps has moved away from their help and is not complimentary in what's being gifted them.
Yeah, and this is one of the places. So twos are most likely to be codependent as well. So long, like especially in unhealthy places, so long as there's still something to provide, there's a relationship worth maintaining. And it's not until that person starts actively rejecting the help being offered that the two is going to start trying to move away from it.
Is it until then, because that's how the two connects with the world, and that's fundamental, that door is often open?
Right, because this is how, so twos, they sort of abdicate their own, they sacrifice their own wants and needs and desires like they don't even think about them in order to take care of other people, but really it's about like they take care of other people in order to make sure that when they one day do need something, that they will have that connection to twos are essentially trying to create relationships where someone else will eventually take care of them the way that they are taking that they are offering care and help.
Mm-hmm.
And so long as someone is accepting that, then that reciprocal road exists. Once you are no longer accepting of my help, then you may not be willing to offer help to me when I need it.
Right. It's a much better way to play that out, I think, than what was going in my head. Watch the opening scene of The Godfather if you want to see a worthwhile presentation of this posture of heart.
Yeah.
Well, what does it look like then to invest in the heart and emotional life of a two?
Well, I think it has a lot to do with providing space for them to get in touch with themselves and almost refusing to accept their help until they let you help them.
Mm-hmm.
It's turning. Oftentimes, it's a sort of forced turning of the tables, but it's also providing a safe space for them to get into touch with that side of themselves. They're so good at reading other people, but they aren't very good at reading themselves. And this is one of the places where they need the most help and encouragement and one of the places to really build genuine connection. It's by giving them the thing that they so readily do for others.
Yeah. Just as a side note, footnote here, you kind of said the same thing for 2s, 7s, and 9s, and this is a triad. This is the positive outlook triad.
Mm-hmm.
When talking about getting in touch with the emotional life for those 3 numbers, is it the case that a positive outlook is the defense mechanism? It's like, here's how I actually keep people back from those struggles I have to get in touch with my emotional life.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, all 3 of those types are detached from their own emotion in a way that, like, they spin it positive to say, "Nah, don't worry." Like 9s, it's going to be all right. But they're detached from their own sadness, or just emotional life in general, in order to not sort of place that burden onto other people.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you provide space for 2s, 7s, and 9s, where they can learn that is not a burden to you, then they can start to invest in that space themselves where it's safe.
Yeah. It's good. What do 2s need to tell people in their lives that they need?
To say no. They need to learn to say no to other people.
On top of that, they need to tell people they're close to, I need permission to say no to you, and you need to
exactly
be able to grant that to me.
Yep. I'm going to say no to you sometimes, and that needs to be okay.
One of the healthiest 2s in our lives, I recall, she's a nurse, and that was one of the first things she said to us when we do a nonprofit, and she got involved. One of the first things she said to me in terms of, I'm getting involved, however, and just very self-aware that she needed to say no to people and was making that known.
Yeah. And honestly, I think that the good and healthy 2s at building real relationships are going to also ask people to say no for them.
Yes. Yeah. And I think that was what she was gunning at, but you're exactly right.
And another way of saying that is telling people, I will say yes if you ask me to do something. So I need you to not ask me to do things sometimes. Because in a way, it is taking advantage of twos. Because they won't say no.
Now, there's a catch-22 there in terms of I connect to the world through helping people and being engaged in those ways. But if somebody is making that choice for me, I don't have the opportunity.
Sure. But also, it's not a bad thing to create and invest in relationships where that's not, where there's intentionally some separation there.
Yeah. Perhaps there are some people in my life whose time I see as probably meritorious of only the most important requests.
Sure.
And simply having that posture of heart toward the twos in my life might be a better way to go.
Yeah. Yeah. There are going to be things that are really important that you will need help. And that's the time to ask. And there are other times where it's not as important, where you could find somebody else or do it yourself.
Mm.
And don't ask twos for help just because you know they'll say yes, because that also makes you a bad person.
Yeah, I think that's a big part of it. Yeah. And I suppose for twos, telling others, being aware that, I don't know, maybe even naming that. I feel like you're taking advantage of me here.
Yeah.
Please don't. I want to be close to you. I want to have a good relationship. I really want to help when it's time to help, but don't take advantage of me.
Yep.
I mean, I suppose that's them pushing. That is a healthy move to their stress number. Yeah.
Yep.
That's using some good 8 tools,
creating some boundaries, saying, yeah, and if they do it in an unhealthy way, they're gonna they're gonna be mean about it.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Mm. Let's talk about the threes. How do threes talk about threes in their emotional life?
So threes brings us to the center of that heart triad. So like 9s and 6s, threes take in the world through that space. They take in information, the world around them, their relationships, everything. They absorb all of that through their heart center. And that's that is the information that they experience, is how do other people think and feel right now. That's how they take in the world. But they don't engage the world from that place. They have equal access to action and thinking. So they take in the opinions of the world around them, the people that are around them, and then they decide on how they're going to behave in order to gain more and better opinions from the world around them. I feel like that's my favorite way I've ever described that.
Yeah, that was solid. I think it's well played. Part of the pragmatist triad. So alongside 6s and 9s, these are magnets. They attach to those in relationship that give them what they want, and what they want is attention, like 2s and 4s. When they're no longer getting what's desired, gonna go somewhere else. That might be a job, a relationship. It's true about cars. When the car is no longer giving you the attention you crave,
find another one. Move on.
You said in our car discussion that when the car is no longer noteworthy.
Yeah.
I don't think it's how relationships work in terms of, well, it could be, I suppose, for some threes, that they are involved in a relationship because the person they're with gives them attention from others. So they are attaching to somebody who's more attractive or successful, and that somehow elevates their own status. So if their partner was to fail or isn't as noteworthy anymore, they might separate.
Sure.
But,
well, and I also think I got onto the car thing a little bit too much, but I also think it helped me realize something, that it's not just about when the vehicle or the thing or the person is not giving them the attention they desire, but it's also when they find something that gives them, when something comes along that gives them more. Yeah,
there it is. That's a even better way to say that.
So this is also
but it could be a both and.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Absolutely. This is also a really good window into the same kind of quality of threes that we talked about with sevens and eights, where they don't necessarily like they don't process their feeling center productively, and they don't necessarily clearly understand the impact that their behavior might have on other people. And this is part of it, is that when they find something that gives them more or stronger or better attention that they're looking for, then the old thing might get abandoned a little too easily.
Yeah.
And that is very true for relationships as well with threes, especially unhealthy threes. They will move on when they find something better.
Yeah. And that's why I wanted to pivot to as well, is the relationship might get you attention from others out there, but it's also the case that you need something significant from the person you're in relationship to. Mm-hmm. That's not necessarily as, for whatever reason, I spin that in my head as a negative, but that's by no means meant to be negative. This is how threes connect to the world.
Right.
They connect to the world by gaining the attention of those they connect to.
Right. And this is like, there are great things happening all over the world by people who are doing it for the attention. Mm-hmm. I'm certain that there are astronauts who go into space because they're really, really, really interested in space. Mm-hmm. But I'm also very certain that there are an awful lot of them who are doing it because being an astronaut is cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
in the eyes of others.
Yeah, they're achieving great things and moving our species forward and advancing scientific discoveries and it's because they want attention. It's not necessarily a bad thing to want people to tell you that you're great.
Yep. So we've mentioned kind of what do you call these? Like the speakers who are kind of like inspirational speakers who are telling you how you can get your life together and get up, and this is how you're going to do this, and you're going to get it all. And a lot of times, somebody like a Tony Robbins strikes me as a three, and they're doing that work, very valuable work, I imagine, in the lives of a lot of folks, and doing it because that dude's got a great platform, and that's feeding their heart and soul. And when they do their job really well, when he does his job really, really, really well, he gets that fundamental thing he needs.
Right. And he also helps other people change their lives for the better.
Yeah. But and you're right in saying that's not necessarily his target.
Right.
It is the fruit there.
Right.
Not necessarily the target.
Right.
I see this a lot in my relationship with Kelly, that are the reasons that we are seeking to do oftentimes very self-sacrificial work comes at very different places, where I am very idealistic about the fruit and do not need somebody to tell me what there's an inherent value that I connect to in the work that I do most of the time, even though now I'm backtracking on things I said before where I said I'd really need people to tell me I did a good job. But part of it's because on the flip side, my wife absolutely needs you to tell her she did a good job, and she's going to tell you need to tell me I did a good job.
Right. And if you don't tell her that, she's going to move on.
Yeah, she's moving.
And that's not like
else.
That's not a Kelly Cook thing. That's a three thing.
Yeah.
Like this is the attachment thing.
And I actually see that as a really healthy thing.
Right.
Like, because I suppose I relate to perhaps like twos on this front, where I will just self-give because it's the right thing to do. Twos will do it for a different reason, but I'll self-give because it's the right thing to do. And it's entirely unhealthy. Like if I'm not connecting to other human beings, some of those ideals may not be valuable at all. Whereas Kelly connecting in those ways, if folks aren't coming back and saying, this meant a lot to me, she actually has a very clear sense of what's worth putting energy into.
Right.
Because really, ultimately, I think human beings and relationships are actually what matter most.
Right.
That's not to say that me spending tons of time on, writing books or building buildings isn't valuable. Those books don't care if I write them. That building isn't saying thank you.
Right.
It might still be valuable, but I don't know. I'm spinning down a.
Well, it's I think there's healthy and unhealthy in both of these things. I think it can very easily be unhealthy to spend all of your energy on things, quote unquote, for the right reason and not build relationships. It can also very easily be completely unhealthy to build relationships at the expense of creating meaning and value.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Comes back to balance. We just always come back.
Yep.
To the balance.
Balance. Yeah. But yeah, that's like, there is so much about threes that projects this, like they are looking to be successful and avoid the appearance of failure at all costs. They don't want anyone to see them as a failure because they care so much about relationships. And the processing of that information means that they are detached from who they are on the inside. And like this is the seat of that, like not being in touch with their emotional center fully, is that they are detached from their own emotions, and they are very concerned about the relationships outside of themselves, because their worth, their value, the thing that they think is important is the thing that other people see.
Right. Yeah. I am what other people tell me I am.
Right.
Temptation.
Right. So they're really good at reading other people's emotions and really bad at reading their own.
Mm-hmm. Well, what does it look like then to invest well in the threes in our lives?
I think it is in part to give them that attention, because that's how you build a relationship, is to tell them how great they are, to pour into them the attention that they're looking for, but also to create space for them to deal with and feel their own emotions, and to not expect them to help communicate to them that they don't have to perform all the time in this space. Like we easily want sevens to be sort of the entertainment machine. We want threes to be the success machine and the cheerleader, and we very easily allow them to be constantly moving, doing great things like motivational speakers and builders of companies, and like we let them do this, but we also need to provide space for them to be normal people who have bad days sometimes.
Yeah.
Because they don't easily create that space for themselves.
Or even are able to get to that spot where they can talk about their failures honestly.
Right.
Those actually can be huge breakthrough moments in the life of three. And you can't force those. I mean, the environment needs to get created.
Right. And part of the way that we communicate, like build relationship into, like with threes in a significant way, is by communicating their value to us outside of that, whatever that facade is.
Yeah. There was a meme my bride sent the two of us that just said, "Therapy went well today up until my therapist asked me to stop trying to win at therapy by being funny and gaining my approval." Like, okay, you didn't have to be so forward about it. I don't know if it's worth. Like, I'd be real curious what a three would say to this. If saying you don't need to reframe the failure with us, like another defense mechanism there, but that can, I imagine, be exhausting.
Sure.
And creating those safe zones.
Well, I think that I don't know that that's something that can be manufactured. Like I think that type of thing, like that type of relationship, comes in time with cultivation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely don't think you can start there ever, because it's often the case that threes don't recognize that they are reframing their failure.
Right. In terms of what we can do for the threes in our lives, perhaps just an easy one is just to be very aware of how much energy they put into doing things for the sake of others and creating things that are amazing and truly with clarity and descriptive excellence saying, these are the things that were done really, really well. And this is why you're really valuable. Yeah. We joke about gold stars and threes occasionally, but there's something to be said about getting the trophy or symbols that signify this thing that you accomplished was done in an excellent way. And that's just an investment into threes.
Right. And
that's oftentimes what they long for.
Right.
What do threes need to tell people in their lives that they need?
I think threes need to learn how to tell people what they need. I don't think it's a question of what. I think it's a question of how. Because needing something is a sign of failure. I think that threes are very good at taking care of themselves and not ever expressing that they need something. Mm-hmm. And I think their big thing is that they need to learn that it's okay to ask for things. It's okay to not be 100% self-sufficient. It's not that you need to communicate something specific to other people. It's that you need to communicate something to other people about what you need.
Yeah, I like that. There are some spaces that the threes in my life I see like really putting their best self forward, and they haven't said yet to the people whose affirmations they desire most. Hey, you need to tell me I'm amazing at my job. Mm-hmm. And I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that to folks, because you'll probably do it in a very tactful, funny, insightful way.
Right.
Hey, dumbass, tell me that I'm amazing at my job, or I'm going to quit doing this. I'm going to go somewhere else, because that's actually exactly what's going to happen.
Right. Yeah.
Bang. You want to talk about the emotional life of fours?
And you're just talking about life.
Emotional life.
All of life. So fours, we come to the end of the circle. Fours, because circles don't have an end. So fours, the last in the heart triad. Fours are right next to the head center. So fours spend a lot of time thinking about their feelings and feelings about their thinkings. They are very, very comfortable in emotional spaces, and because they spend so much time in their head, they are often thinking about their own emotions and their emotional life, and that's sort of the big place that they live is how do other people see me, but also how do I feel about that, and how do I feel about that thing that happened, and what is life anyway, and the big questions, and like the way that the heart center interprets the world, that is the space where fours live and spend their time. And all emotions are okay and permissible because they're a reflection of reality.
Interesting pairing with that last sentiment, because fours are going to be idealists alongside ones and sevens. All emotions on one front, but on a secondary front, how does that work with idealism? Because that feels fairly specific.
Well, because that idealism is as sort of a filter through which they see reality. Like sevens as idealists, the world could be more enjoyable. Like our lives could be like, look at where we could be. Why not go there?
Yep.
Ones, their idealism is about fixing the things that are broken. And fours, their idealism is in large measure about seeing the beauty that already exists. And the frustration comes in with A, the fact that other people don't see it, and B, that we all are striving for something that is already amazing. So like this is one of the places where fours and sevens have such a significant disconnect, is that sevens are trying to have more enjoyment while fours are saying, but look at the beauty in the darkness. And they're both expressions of idealism, just very, very different flavors of idealism.
Yeah. And it's how they connect to the world.
Right.
Get frustrated when they don't get it.
Right. And because like from that place of seeing the beauty in all things and the complexity of the world and themselves, fours have a very clear sense of their own individuality and like every human being is unique and beautiful in the fact that they exist. And that includes me, but there's something about me that like everyone else seems to fit in.
Yeah.
Seems to have something that makes their lives more interesting, easy, or whatever. And I seem to be missing something because I'm different from everyone else. And that frustration plays a role in, if only I had what they had, then I might actually be happier. Or I might be able to attain this, whatever.
We had fours getting rid of their cars when it was no longer special enough. Just listening to it, I was like, I wonder if it's the car no longer expresses their own sense of uniqueness.
Yeah.
Or what they want to convey to the world.
Yeah. If it's the same kind of car that everyone else drives.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, because
Yeah.
that would be it. And it's no longer special enough.
Right. Right.
How does that work in relationships, though? I'm ending a relationship because I'm no longer connecting ideally.
I think there's a little bit too much sarcasm in my answer about the car thing because I think it's too complex to make any kind of like snap, pithy comment about why a four might get rid of their vehicle, or especially about why they might end a relationship. Because fours have this interesting thing where like that sense of lacking in themselves is also going to cause them to sort of push people away, and like expecting that people are that they are going to eventually be too much for someone else to handle. They're going to push them away, and then when that person leaves, they're basically proven right. So that's one way that fours end relationships is by intentionally and possibly subconsciously pushing people out of their lives because they feel like those people are going to leave anyway because of that sense of deprivation that they have, that they're missing something to allow them to be happy. When people don't allow them the fullness of their emotional expression, that's going to be a huge problem for fours. Like the fact that they're too much for other people is going to end relationships. I think the idealism will come into play a lot when talking about whether or not fours stay in or end relationships. That this relationship could be something so much fuller than it is, and because of whatever reason, it's not reaching that potential. And as the four, I'm going to get frustrated and break it.
If it sticks around, though, then it has something that's real, that's tangible, would that be correct?
Yeah. And like fours are very, very concerned with authenticity.
And that's what I mean.
And if even in the midst of significant hardship, the relationship remains, then there's something worth investing in. There's something there to keep.
Fours, kind of unique on the list of types, often get pegged as more emotional than other types. You want to talk about the emotional life of fours in that way?
Well, I think we've sort of touched on it, and it's a combination of factors. It's the fact that they live in they take in the world through that emotional center. This is the primary way that they process all information, is by how do I feel about this? How do the people around me feel about this? How do the people around me feel about how I feel about this? How do I feel about how the people around me feel about this? And then they move into their mind center and process it all over again.
Right.
So like that's and like it just becomes this sort of back and forth of thinking about their emotions and feeling about their thinkings. And because the one that they're farthest away from is the body center. It's the energy and the action and the intuition. That's the place where they struggle the most. But thinking about their feelings and feeling about their thinkings, that's the thing that they do naturally all the time. And like we said, they're very concerned about authenticity. So all emotions are valid,
right?
Because they're true.
Yep. What does it look like then to invest in the life and heart of a four?
I think it means sticking with the intensity, being around for the ups and the downs, because they're real and they're not going to go away. And if you can't handle that, then you probably aren't going to be able to handle a relationship with a four anyway. Because you're not going to fix this for them. It doesn't need to be fixed because it's not broken. It's just who they are. And it means investing in creating environments where they can safely start to put action into their lives. And like, this is coming from a body type, so it might be filtered through that. But like, to have good, stable, solid relationships with other people, you have to build something together. And that doesn't necessarily mean you have to physically build a space or a thing, but if the only thing that you're ever doing in a relationship is talking about your feelings, then you're not building something together.
Yeah.
You're just talking about now and the past.
Yep.
So creating ways that you can work on something, and that could be like creating art or investing in like get a puppy or like doing something to where you're building something more than just sitting around talking about your feelings. Like even if it's like working through books together or like building something together could be literally building the relationship.
Yeah.
I think that's the way that you have real connection with a four for the long term.
Right. I don't often see fours as leaders of those action-oriented. I don't often see fours as the instigators of those actions. There are a few I can think of that are really desirous of that and putting themselves out there, and often do exactly what you're saying. They're like almost looking for partners who have the natural energy that they can, it's not an attaching, but it's certainly like a partnering with.
Yeah.
And it's a feeding into.
Yeah. Yeah. Some of us action repressed people need someone to drag us along a little bit sometimes to help us get going.
But I think those who are working on their action repressed side often are almost posturing themselves for that.
Yep.
And that can be a good move. And so, yeah. So if it may feel like for me, I don't want to control anybody. So it may feel like, jumping into the space of withdrawn types is me getting in their business. But actually it's the case that that's a place of connection for fives, nines, and fours.
Right.
And that would be the case here. What do 4s need to tell people in their lives that they need?
I think one of the big ones is that they need to be able to express the fullness of their emotionality without it being fixed, without judgment or repair. Because so many of us so easily, oh, you're sad? Let me help you be not sad.
Right.
And that's not what 4s are looking for. And they need to be able to express that I want you to sit with me in my sadness sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Or join me in my exuberance without forcing it to be, without trying to get it to be something different.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that 4s need to learn to express that they need people to stick around. That push-pull thing, that like the act of pushing people away, a lot of us don't have interest in sticking around for that. Mm-hmm. If you're going to push me away, that's fine. I'll go away.
Right.
And 4s need to communicate that, like, they need to learn this about themselves, that this is something that they're going to do. And they need to communicate to the people who are important that when this happens, don't leave.
Yeah.
Or at least come back.
Yeah. We've referenced coping styles with the 2 7s and 9s before, but our answers here for 4, 6s, and 8s, the emotionally responsive types, real similar on that as well, as creating the space for 8s to shoot blanks, for 6s to be validated, and 4s here. Mm-hmm. There's a grace that needs to be applied to these types as they express.
Right.
Bang. That's what I got.
Cool. We got around the circle.
Yay. All the way. Well, anything, any big thoughts just in terms of talking about the whole circle?
I think the heart center is the easiest one for us to dismiss. And you're not a whole person if you aren't engaged in the totality of your emotional space. And you're not a good friend, partner, communicator, leader, parent, other names for relationships if you don't care about how your behavior affects other people. The emotional center is about relationship, connection, and like this is the place where relationships are made or broken.
Yeah.
And if you dismiss this, then you're missing a significant part of what it means to be human.
I tried to earmark and highlight it for folks that are real close to me, but this just strikes me as the place the real gold is in our romantic relationships and our relationships with family members in particular, but often with our friends as well. I think we choose our friends, and oftentimes our friendships are a little bit more natural, and we engage how our friends connect to the world more. That's why we're attracted to them as friends.
Sure.
But you're handed your family.
Yeah.
There are depths to be discovered if you can get into that space where, oh, that's how they connect to me and to the world, and opening up those spaces. And it's just, that's where the gold is. Yep. Well, friends, it would mean the world to us if you pause, take 2 seconds, write us a brief review, and give us some stars on the iTunes. That helps people find our stuff. You can also just share it with somebody that you love. You can find all the links to all of our stuff at aroundthecircle.org, and shout outs on the Twitter and Instagram, on Facebook. They're always appreciated. A lot more people have been reaching out to us recently. I don't know if I've told you this. We were radio silent for 1.5 years or so, but slowly you can.
I blame the pandemic.
Some good folks out there are sharing stuff and sending questions our way, which are actually really appreciated. Music's by The Collection and Tim Coons. And that's what I got. You got anything else there, my man?
I got nothing.
He's CJ Wilson. He's officially awesome. And I am Jeff Cook. And who you aren't isn't interesting. Be who you are. And we love how you connect with the world.
tongue, burning